Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /IDontWorkHereLady, where Karens seem to think that everyone on Earth is meant to serve them. And in today's episode, we've got Karens throwing tantrums, attacking customers, and one OP tells a story about their wild Karen encounter at 3 a.m. This one's a wild one. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories, don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. This happened last week after my son's soccer practice. I just had a few minutes between finishing work and having to drive my son, 10 years old, to soccer. So I did what I normally do, and I grabbed the first shirt off the top of the pile and I put it on, without a second thought. I also work from home, so I haven't shaved for a few days, so I did look a bit grungy. At the same time, my wife had laid out my son's soccer clothes, including a bright yellow soccer shirt with the appropriate overpriced logo on it. It wasn't until some of the parents at the practice started teasing me that we were shirt twins that I realized that the shirt I was wearing was also bright yellow. So we laughed, the kids practiced, and all was good. During practice, my wife messaged me and she asked if we could pick up groceries, so we drove to the local grocery store, a typical day. When we got to the store, the closest parking spot had a few carts in it, so my son helpfully got out to move the carts while I pulled in. He pushed a few to the return area nearby, and he kept one for us. Again, typical boring day getting groceries. As I got out and grabbed the cart my son left for me, some woman parked next to us was putting her groceries in her SUV, and we heard her say something like, "Hey, I'm done with my cart, take it back." But of course, we didn't pay attention. About 30 seconds later, we hear a bang and then scraping of metal. We turned to see the lady had backed into the cart she left behind her SUV. As we started chuckling, she gets out of her car furious and she starts yelling at my son that he was supposed to take the cart, and now he's gotta pay damages because he didn't do his damn job. My son just froze at her screaming at him. He wavered between crying and running because he's shy and he didn't know what to do. She was literally throwing F-bombs at him. She then starts in on me, and she said that my employee didn't take the cart and look what I now did. Right about now, others, including the cart people with bright orange vests, start coming around to try to understand what was happening. Avoiding cursing in front of my son, I told her to shut up, that he obviously doesn't work here since 1, he's wearing a soccer uniform with a giant swoosh on the front, and 2, he's a frickin' 10-year-old kid. She then started saying that I should have moved the cart, since obviously my yellow shirt meant I work there. The cart guy just walks up to her and told her that he needs her to come into the store to talk to the manager because of damages, and that he'll make sure that we will be taken care of. We checked that there was no damage to our car and then got the groceries. When we were checking out, a cashier ushers us to a new lane that had no line, so we could get out quickly, while the lady was still heard arguing with the manager about insurance and suing the damn place. Yeah, why am I not surprised that she was screaming about suing the place? Like, it's never a Karen's fault, right? But you know what? As the driver of the car, she's 100% at fault in this case. On top of that, even if OP was a worker, it's her job to make sure that nothing's behind her before backing out of a parking spot. Like, you can't just assume it's clear behind you. And thank goodness it was a cart and not a pedestrian. Nonetheless, that was some super satisfying instant karma that was well deserved. So I work for my school district as a para-educator, and I work with kids one-on-one most of the time. Well, last month, I had to write up a first grader I work with for pulling the fire alarm for no reason. We knew it was her because she was standing right there in front of 3 teachers. It led to the entire school having to stand outside for 2 hours during lunch while the fire department came and tried to figure out what happened. The kid gets suspended and she just came back to school last week. Well, apparently, her mom was not happy at all with the fact that her kid got suspended, and she didn't believe it was her kid who did it. So she wanted to shout at the para who wrote her up. The kid apparently tried to point me out to her mom when she was getting picked up. That said, my older sister, who lives across the country, was in town for a wedding. and she had been with me at the time since we were going to hang out. A little thing about my sister that you need to know is she doesn't take crap from anyone. She's got the mouth of a sailor, and she's not afraid to use it on those who deserve it. So I end up walking away, telling my big sister to stay put, since I just needed to go get my bag from my locker before we could leave. Well, the Karen parent appeared almost as soon as I was gone, thinking my sister was her kid's para-educator. She starts screaming at my sister, saying how her daughter would never do such a thing, how I was a liar who was somehow able to hate an angel like her daughter, blah blah blah, you get the gist. Well, my sister doesn't have a clue what's going on. She just knows that some random woman is berating her in public, and my sister lets her have it. She starts screaming back insults at the Karen. Meanwhile, Karen's shouting that my sister's gonna lose her job, so on and so forth. Of course, they start to draw attention. Karen's still shouting, and the other paras who are leaving are coming out, and they take notice and they try to defuse the situation. Thankfully, they're good people, and they jumped in to stop Karen. Apparently, being faced with more than one person yelling at her was not what the Karen was planning, because she backed up, and she was given a verbal takedown by three 50-something-year-old ladies that don't take crap from kids, much less entitled Karens. The Karen ran off, and I came out to catch the tail end of things. My sister was super cool about it. It did freak her out at first, but once she realized it was a psycho parent she was dealing with, she told me that she had no issues yelling back at Karen. She just brushed it off and she let it go after that. Thankfully, I haven't seen the Karen yet. I will update though if she comes after me. Yeah, I'd like to hope she doesn't come after OP and she ends up being banned from the school for trying to scream at a teacher. And seriously, parents like that aren't only disruptive, but they frighten other children there, and I'm sure her little angel was also super embarrassed by mommy that day. Like, isn't that something? My child would never, ever, ever pull the fire alarm. Why did you write her up? Why did you suspend her? Maybe because she did, ma'am. We saw her do it, and we have proof. Some parents, I tell you. And if you enjoyed that story where someone fights back against a nasty Karen, you've got to listen to this next post. Okay, so this story's a little different as it was very intentional, and I was the one mistaking someone for working somewhere. I took a page out of these stories that I've been listening to deal with a nasty customer. Also, just a word before the story. I'm happy with what I did, and this might make me a jerk, but I don't regret it. With that said, one of my closest friends works at Walmart. We both worked there a bit out of high school, and I quit and moved on while he stayed there. The job was god-awful, that's all you have to know. Story time. So despite my utter disgust of the local Walmart due to my short-term employment there, it's the best location for buying things at, in terms of being close and affordable. Also, while I'm there, I get to talk to my friend who we'll call Ted. On this specific trip, I was there for headphones, and I stopped to see Ted, who was not very happy at all due to a woman causing trouble and yelling at him and two others. That's when I get a funny idea, and I didn't exactly know how effective it would be, but I got him to play along. He didn't have to do very much outside of his normal routine. I told him I wasn't gonna get him into any trouble for this, and just to trust me, and to just point out the woman for me. Now, I honestly didn't know what she was looking for in Walmart that got her so riled up, but she was about to get a reason to not come back. I approached the woman looking a little lost. She looked like the very definition of holier than thou, and apparently she'd been making quite the ruckus when peasant workers couldn't help her. I tapped her on the shoulder while she was looking at coffee machines. Now, not just a tap, but a heavy, let me speak to your manager, super entitled tapping. The woman turned to me, and in my best annoyed voice, I spoke and said, "Ma'am, why are you standing there? I've been waiting for 5 whole minutes. Where are the damn headphones you said you'd bring to me?" Clearly confused, she starts saying something about not being a worker. But I just wave her off dismissively, and I continued and said, "You need to learn to treat your customers better. I asked you 5 minutes ago, and you're still standing here looking at stuff." The woman screamed back at me about the audacity, something something, and finally she doesn't work in this place. I just scoffed and I raised my voice over hers and I said, "What do you mean you don't work here? Look at you. Dime store necklace, dollar store clothes, and your haircut. Of course you work here. Stop being useless and get me my headphones." Needless to say, the woman, simply overloaded and horribly offended, called me crazy and she starts walking off. Me and my friend had a good laugh. He didn't get into trouble and no one came to talk to me about it. So yeah, I might have been a bit rude, judge me if you like. But she was giving my friend a hard time and the store couldn't really punish me, so I jumped at the chance to intentionally pretend like I thought she worked there just to take her down a peg. Listen, giving an entitled Karen a dose of their own medicine, I frickin' love it. Like, be as rude as you can be to a person who's being as rude as they can be. But damn OP, suggesting that she clearly works there because of her dime store necklace and cheap dollar store clothes and haircuts, those in my opinion were some frickin' savage shots. So listening to one of your stories about a mom and kid having to go to the bathroom in a store, I was reminded of this. Now, I've never been mistaken for an employee at a place I don't work at, but I did have to tell a psycho Karen that she doesn't work at my store. I work at a 7-Eleven, and I have for about 6 years. I've done my time on night shifts, and if you've ever worked alone at 3 o'clock in the morning in a convenience store, you know that's when society's strangest people often emerge. One night, I didn't just get a Karen. I got this woman so completely over the top that I contemplated quitting the same day. Here's the story. So it's late at night, technically early morning, and I'm alone after my coworker leaves. It's just after 3 o'clock. I'm in the zone stocking shelves, and that's when the bell chimes, and in strolls a woman, reeking of booze and cigarettes. The Karen marches right up to the counter, and she says, "I need to use your bathroom." I give her the standard speech. We don't have a public bathroom. Staff only. It's locked with a keypad. Now, this should have been the end of it, but it's not. Karen, slurring, says, "Well, where do you go? Where do you go when you need to go pee?" I respond, "The staff bathroom, employees only." Hearing me say that, Karen's eyes widen and she says to me, "Well, I'm staff. I worked at 7-Eleven 20 years ago, so unlock the bathroom now." Now, even if she did work here in like 1994, that doesn't grant lifetime employee bathroom privileges. Also, she was probably lying. I just say to her, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but..." She then stops me right there and she says, "Then I want to speak to your effing manager." Now, my manager's asleep because, again, 3 a.m. But at this point in time, I'm still somewhat new. I'm panicking and trying to follow procedure, so I call my manager. My manager wakes up extremely unhappy to be involved in this bathroom thing. She tells me that this woman sounds unstable and to absolutely not let her to the back, because who knows if she's gonna use the bathroom, steal something, yada yada yada. So I return to the front. Karen's pacing at this point. I tell her, "Hey, I talked to my manager. You can't use the bathroom." Karen says, "Of course she said that. I believe you." I also add on and say, "Also, she says you need to leave the store." And that's when Karen snaps and she says, "I work here and I'm using the bathroom." And this is when things get crazy. The woman storms behind the counter and she lunges for the door like a lunatic on a mission. I rush to block her and she slams her shoulder into the locked door. Of course, the door doesn't budge. She then shrieks, spins around, and she starts screaming at me, accusing me of committing bathroom discrimination and something about basic human rights being violated. She then whips out her phone and she dials 911. That's right, this drunken Karen called the cops. She's screaming into the phone saying, "Police, I need officers at so-and-so 7-Eleven. I'm being illegally detained and being denied basic human rights." At this point, I have no choice. The store policy says if someone's going ballistic, I have to call the cops. So now we've both called the police. About 5 minutes later, 2 officers arrive, just in time to catch Karen screaming at me from behind the counter. Cop 1 asked her, "Hey, what are you doing?" Karen screams and says, "I've been denied this employee bathroom and I'm about to pee myself." Cop number 2 looks at me and I say, "Well, she says she worked here like 20 years ago. Maybe. She doesn't work here now and she's trying to use the staff bathroom." That's when Cop 1 says, "Ma'am, if you don't step away from the door, you will be arrested." And that's when Karen says, "If I pee on the floor, it's a federal crime and I'm not going to jail because it's her fault." Finally, the cops escort Karen out. As she's being walked outside, she yells over her shoulder, "I'll be calling the head office and the news." I was so stressed at that point that I half expected police to cuff me too for some reason. Like I said, after that incident, I seriously contemplated quitting right then and there, but I ended up sticking it out. You know, I do get the whole being drunk thing and putting up a fight, but like, if she had just left and she went to find another place where she could do her business, it would have taken like no time at all, right? And she wouldn't have been arrested. Like, that's got me thinking, did she really have to go that badly? Maybe not. And seriously, you gotta love the whole 911 thing though, right? Like, I'm being denied basic human rights. If I pee on the floor, it's all her fault. Like, how wild was that? And guys, if I were in Opie's shoes, I'd consider quitting as well. Don't blame them one bit. Okay, so I'm not sure if this is an entitled people or an I don't work here lady post. Probably a bit of both, and I really wanted to share it with your listeners. I'm also 62 years old. This happened yesterday as I was filling my work truck at the service station. I'd been out working all day, so I was dirty, sweaty, and tired. I had an old oil-stained t-shirt on, shorts, and some old runners. I in no way looked like I worked there. That's when a young woman, who we'll call Karen because why not, pulls up to the other side of my fuel pump. The woman was dressed sharp business style, complete with heels, the works. The woman just says to me, "Fill my tank when you're done there." She then starts to walk inside the store. I tell her, I don't work here, lady." The girl just walks off, probably not hearing me. I just shrug, finish filling my tank, and head inside to pay. Now, this might have been different had there been some common courtesy used, like a please, a thank you, or could you possibly help me? But rude orders are the absolute best way to piss this old guy off. I head to the counter and I can see the woman waiting there to one side. I say, "Number 4 pump." Karen says, "And I'm on number 5. The guy behind the register looks surprised. The cashier says, "There's only the one sale for number 4 pump." I say, "Yep," and then hand him my card. That's when Karen says, "Well, he filled my car too." I say, "Nope." And hearing that, she instantly goes red-faced and she starts shouting at me, asking why I didn't do it for her. She said, "I told you to fill my tank. Why didn't you do it?" That's when I said to her, "Look, I don't work here, I don't work for you, and I most certainly don't take orders from anyone, so get out there and pump your own effing fuel." She ranted some more and I left, too tired, don't care. I'm still trying to work out exactly what her problem was. I've listened to a lot of these stories, and being my age, I can't believe that I've never encountered this level of self-centered arrogance before. If anyone has any ideas, I'd like to hear them. And if the poor cashier hears this, mate, I'm really sorry for leaving you with this psycho. I am honestly surprised that OP made it this far without meeting a rude, self-centered person. But yeah, some people are really next level with their self-entitlement, right? Like, I would never, ever dare say anything like that to anyone, let alone someone who's old enough to be my father. And the way that she was like, "Oh, I'm on pump number 5. Like, did she also expect OP to pay for her gas too? So a little over a year ago, I had just started college at a university town, one town over from where I lived. I decided to move into the dorms to experience the full college life, and as I had no car to drive back home, I had to quit a retail job that I had for about a year and a half and turn down a manager position I was just offered. The town I go to college in is pretty small, and the only thing going for it is the university, so there were no clothing stores or entertainment places. My third week of university, a few of my new friends and myself decided to take a trip back to my hometown to visit the mall. The store I used to work at was one of those very teen-centric fashion stores, and I decided to drop by and say hi to my past coworkers. My friends decide to look around the store, so I stay and start looking for a gift for my girlfriend. About 10 minutes later, a small Hispanic woman comes up, and she asked if I could open a changing room for her daughter. I politely told her that I don't work there, and continued to browse some hoodies. At this point, she gets a little aggressive, and she proceeds to say, yes you do work here, I've seen you here before, and you've helped me before. I then proceed to explain that I recently quit, and I can no longer do that for her, and for her to find an associate to help her. And this is where she goes full Karen mode. She says, "Don't you lie to me. You're lazy. I know you work here. Stop lying and do your job." After working in retail for so long, I was tired of putting up with rude customers, and I practically jumped at the chance to let this lady have it. I say to her, for the last time, I don't effing work here. Well, that's when this Hispanic woman, who was maybe only 5 foot tall, starts cussing and yelling at me in Spanish, which I barely understand. And after a few seconds, she switches back to English and starts yelling at me to get my manager, and that she'll have me fired. The manager on duty was actually the store manager, who I really liked since she never took BS from customers. She was already on her way over. The woman then realized it was the manager, and she starts cussing in Spanish again. And at this point, the store manager politely told her to leave immediately in Spanish. This only made the woman angrier, and they now go into a screaming match. She spits out more Spanish, all the while her daughter just stands behind her very embarrassed and a little scared. The store manager got fed up, and she told the lady in Spanish to get out before I call the police. The woman just huffed with another flurry of curses and then turned away and started walking. About halfway out, she turns back and she screams, "I'm contacting the district office to have you and that lazy piece of crap fired." The store manager just laughed and she said, "My sister's the district manager, and he doesn't even work here, pendeja." We both looked at each other and we let out a little laugh. I stopped looking for gifts, and I spent the rest of my time in the store explaining what happened to my friends and talking to the manager about other times situations like this happened when I worked there. Overall, I don't miss retail one bit because of having to deal with people like this on a regular, but I do miss the people I work with, especially the store manager. She always had my back, even as a customer. I just absolutely love how that manager dealt with this Karen, and just imagining a full-blown screaming match in Spanish had me smiling, guys. Like, there is no better feeling than managers having your back when it comes to dealing with nasty customers, because seriously, nothing worse than a manager siding with a Karen when the Karen's 1000% in the wrong. And this person shares a similar story about their manager. They say, "So since Christmas is right around the corner, I recently thought about this story, and I want to share it to your listeners. I used to work in a department store that happened to be open all year round except for Christmas Day. The day this happened, it was the eve, at 6 p.m. I was working the jewelry department since early that morning, and I was absolutely overwhelmed with people last-minute shopping. They announced the store was about to close, that all departments are closed, and for everyone to proceed to a register. I checked people out, while everyone not on a register just swept the store, pulling everyone to the checkouts asking them to leave. We worked hard all day, and finally all the customers were gone, and they said that we can clock out and have a Merry Christmas. I was strolling out of the back like I was on fire. They let us have 30 minutes to do some quick shopping after closing. We grabbed some groceries and some food, and we all lined up, socializing, sharing gifts, and having a good time waiting to check out. I met up with my husband, who also works there on the other end of the store. Our manager was guarding the door with this big security guard. She wished us a Merry Christmas, and she let us out the door. Also, you have to understand that our store manager does not bow to anyone. He doesn't care who you are. If you're not corporate, she will tell you to get the hell out and F off with no hesitation, even to customers. During closing on Christmas Eve, she gave no Fs. She told everyone in the store 10 minutes to get their stuff and get in line at the register. Anyone who dared to argue quickly got in line when she would say, "Okay, if you're not gonna check out, give me all of your items and walk out the door or be thrown out." So yeah, that's my manager. Anyways, we merrily walk out to our car. I put the groceries up, and that's when an old man approaches us. He says to me, "Hey, I heard you guys are closed tonight. Is that true?" I respond, "Yep." He then says, "Well, is there any way you can get us in the store? I need to do some shopping." I reply, no, we're closed." At that he says, "What, please?" I again say, "No, we're closed. I'm leaving." He then says, No, you're not leaving. This is ridiculous. You're being so damn rude. Where is your manager?" That's when I point to the store manager, who's literally 30 feet away from me, who for extra hilarity is currently screaming at a customer, telling her that no, she can't come in, to leave, or she'll call the police and have her arrested. And seriously, the timing was priceless. I just smiled and I milked that crap for all it was worth. I then say to him, "My name's Jesse, so why don't you go tell her that I won't let you into the store? As a matter of fact, let's go over there together." The man just stood there in shock for a moment, with bewilderment in his eyes, knowing that he lost. He just sputters and says, That's okay, I'm sorry." If that wasn't enough, my husband shouted, "Goodbye, get your stuff, and get out." As we drove away, I was completely dead. Again, managers who appreciate their workers and have their back when it comes to Karens are incredible people. And this person comments, "I worked at a small grocery store that closed every night at 10 o'clock. There was always this one lady who showed up without fail at 9:50. And she would grab 2 carts, and she would take a good hour to do her shopping. It was ridiculous, and the woman wasn't nice about it or apologetic. She was known vaguely by someone who knew she was a housewife, so there was no reason to be shopping that late, unless it's because she enjoyed the power trip of knowing that we're all hanging around on her. She would also come with expired coupons, bottle returns, anything she could do to make things tricky. Well, my manager got sick of it, and at 9:30, he locked up all the carts in the corral. If you came after 9:30, you could get a basket, but not a cart. The first time watching her try to yank out a chained-up cart was glorious. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled People episode, where psycho Karens think they rule the world, and they get taught lessons they won't forget. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.